Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss about the topic inheritance under Muslim law. Islamic law of inheritance, like the rest of the Islamic personal law, combines elements from both the pre-Islamic traditions and rules interpreted from the Quran by the Prophet. The Muslim law of inheritance derives its principles from four principal sources of Islamic law, which are the Holy Quran, the Sunnah, that is, the practice of the Prophet, the Ijma, that is, the consensus of the learned men of a community on a particular point of law, and the Qiyas, that is, the analogical deductions of what holds just and right and in line with the principles of God. At present, the law of inheritance for Muslim is the only law that is yet uncodified in India. For other communities, the Indian Succession Act is applicable, save for Hindus who are governed by the codified Hindu Succession Act. The only exception for a Muslim is if his marriage is registered under the Special Marriage Act of 1954, following which he gains all the rights of a testator as given in the Indian Succession Act of 1925. However, in all other cases and circumstances, the inheritance is governed by the Muslim personal law or Shariat. The Muslim Personal Law Shariat Application Act 1937 is applicable to non-testamentary succession, that is, succession in the absence of a will. For testamentary succession, which is when the deceased has made a will, then the Muslim Shariat law is applied to succession as practiced by the Sunni and Shia Muslims. Inheritance rights comes into picture only after the death of the person. No person is a legal heir or has the right to claim the property before the death of the person. Every heir that survives a person becomes his or her legal heir. Now, let us see what is heritable property under Muslim law. Heritable property is that property which is available to the legal heirs for inheritance. After the death of a Muslim, his properties are utilized for the payment of his funeral expenses, debts, and the legacies. After these payments, the remaining property is called heritable property. Under Muslim law, every kind of property may be a heritable property. For the purpose of inheritance, Muslim law does not make any distinction between corpus and usufruct, or between movable and immovable, or between corporeal and incorporeal property. Any property which was in the ownership of the deceased at the moment of his death may be the subject matter of inheritance. In other words, whatever is left after the death of a Muslim is his heritable property. Now, let us discuss about the general principles of inheritance under Muslim law. Any child born into a Muslim family does not get his right to property on his birth. In fact, no such person becomes a legal heir and therefore holds no right till the time of the death of the ancestor. If an heir lives even after the death of the ancestor, he becomes a legal heir and is therefore entitled to a share in property. If we take females' right of inheritance, males and females have equal rights of inheritance under Muslim law. Upon the death of a Muslim, if his heirs includes also the females, then male and female heirs inherit the property simultaneously. Males have no preferential right of inheritance over the females. But normally, the share of a male is double the share of a woman. The reason behind this is that under the Muslim law, a female shall upon marriage receive meher and maintenance from her husband, whereas males will have only the property of the ancestors for inheritance. Also, males have the duty of maintaining their wife and children. A child in the womb of its mother is competent to inherit, provided it should born alive. A child in the embryo is regarded as a living person, and as such, the property vests immediately in that child. But if such a child in the womb is not born alive, the share already vested in it is divested. If we take the widow's right to succession, under Muslim law, no widow is excluded from succession. A childless Muslim widow is entitled to 1/4 of the property of the deceased husband after meeting his funeral and legal expenses and debts. However, a widow who has children or grandchildren is entitled to 1/8 of the deceased husband's property. Primogeniture is a principle of inheritance under which the eldest son of the deceased enjoys certain special privileges. Muslim law does not recognize the rule of primogeniture, and all sons are treated equally. However, under the Shia law, the eldest son has an exclusive right to inherit his father's garment, sword, ring, and the copy of Quran, provided that such eldest son is of sound mind and the father has left certain other properties besides these articles. The stepchildren are not entitled to inherit the properties of their step-parents. The stepfather and stepson or daughter cannot inherit each other's properties. That stepchild is competent to inherit from its natural father or natural mother. Similarly, the natural father and natural mother can inherit from their natural sons or daughters. However, the stepbrothers or sisters can inherit each other's properties. Now, let us see the result of simultaneous death of two heirs. When two or more persons die in such a circumstance that it is not ascertainable as to who died first, that is, who survived whom, then both of them cease to be an heir for each other. In other words, when two or more heirs die simultaneously and it is not possible to establish as to who died first, then under Muslim law, all the heirs are presumed to have died just at one moment. The result is that such heirs are regarded as if they did not exist at all. The inheritance opens omitting these heirs. For example, A and B are each other's legal heirs in such a manner that after the death of any one of them, the surviving person would inherit the property of the deceased one. But if both A and die simultaneously in an aeroplane crash and it could not be established as to who survived whom, under Muslim law, neither A would inherit B nor B would inherit A. Thus, the legal heirs of A would inherit A's property as if there was no B at all. Similarly, the heirs of B would inherit B's property as if A did not exist at all. Where a deceased Muslim has no legal heir under Muslim law, his properties are inherited by government through the process of escheat. State is regarded as the ultimate heir of every deceased. Where a Muslim contracts his marriage under the Special Marriage Act 1954, he ceases to be a Muslim for purpose of inheritance. Accordingly, after the death of such a Muslim, his or her properties do not devolve under Muslim law of inheritance. The inheritance of the properties of such Muslims is governed by the provisions of the Indian Succession Act 1925, and Muslim law of inheritance is not applicable for them. Now, let us discuss about the types of heirs under Muslim law. Muslim law recognizes two types of heirs, that is, sharers and residuaries. Sharers are those who are entitled to a certain share in the deceased's property, and residuaries would take up the share in the property that is left over after the sharers have taken their part. The sharers are 12 in number. They include husband, wife, daughter, daughter of a son or son's son, son's son's son, and so on, father, paternal grandfather, mother, grandmother on the male line, full sister, consanguine sister, uterine sister, and uterine brother. Now let us see what is doctrine of representation. Doctrine of representation is a well-known principle recognized by the Roman, English, and Hindu laws of inheritance. Under the doctrine of representation, the son of a predeceased son represents his father for the purpose of inheritance. This doctrine may be explained with the help of the diagram given here. P has two sons A and B. A has got two sons C and D. B has a son E. Unfortunately, B predeceases P, that is, B dies before the death of P. Subsequently, when P also dies, the sole surviving members of the family of P are A and three grandsons, that is C, D and E. Under the doctrine of representation, E will represent his predeceased father B and would be entitled to inherit the properties of P in the same manner as B would have inherited if he had been alive at the time of P's death. But Muslim law does not recognize the doctrine of representation. Under Muslim law, the nearer excludes the remoter. Accordingly, in the illustration given here, E will be totally excluded from inheriting the properties of P, both under Shia as well as under Sunni law. E has no right to inherit the properties of P. The result is that E cannot take the plea that he represents his predeceased father and should be substituted in his place. That's why Muslim law does not recognize the doctrine of representation. Now let us see how the property will be distributed under Muslim law. Under the Muslim law, distribution of property can be made in two ways, that is, per capita or per strip distribution. The per capita distribution method is majorly used under Sunni law. According to this method, the estate left over by the ancestors gets equally distributed among the heirs. Therefore, the share of each person depends on the number of heirs. The per strip distribution method is recognized under Shia law. According to this method of property inheritance, the property gets distributed among the heirs according to the strip they belong to. Hence, the quantum of their inheritance also depends upon the branch and the number of persons that belong to that branch. Now, let us know about the per capita and per strip distribution by the diagram given here. M has got two sons, A and B. A has three sons, S1, S2 and S3. B has two sons, S4 and S5. When M dies, there are two branches of succession, one of A and the other of B. Suppose A and B both die before the death of M, so that the sole surviving heirs of M are his five grandsons. Now, under the per capita scheme of distribution, which is majorly recognized under Sunni law, the total number of claimants is 5, and the heritable property would be equally divided among all of them, irrespective of the branch to which an heir belongs. Under Shia law, if there are several heirs of the same class but they descend from different branches, the distribution among them is per strip. That is to say, the quantum of property inherited by each of them depends upon the property available to that particular branch to which they belong. In the before mentioned illustration, A and B constitute two branches, each having half of M's property. Both A and B predecessors M. but the quantum of property available to each of their branch would remain the same. Therefore, the surviving heirs of A, namely S1, S2, S3, would get equal shares out of half, which is the quantum of property available to the branch of A. Similarly, the quantum of property available to the branch of B is also half, but the descendants from this branch are only 2. Accordingly, the half, which is the quantum of property available to the branch of B, would be equally shared by S4 and S5. By this, we come to the end of this topic. Thank you.